Today's primary elections, the first statewide election since 2020, and over the past 2 years, things have changed dramatically. 2020 was a politically charged, turbulent year. It tested America's faith in democracy and made election security an issue for the GOP base. Democrats are hopeful that energy surrounding the abortion issue and overturning Roe v. Wade gives them momentum at the polls. No doubt the top political concerns right now are economic, specifically inflation for everybody. Joining me on the morning show, Chris Hand, a government law attorney and co-author of the book, America, the Owner's Manual. Good morning, Chris. Glad to have you here.
Good morning, Bruce. Great to be here as always.
So let me start with one of the biggest issues on the ballot, the governor's race. Ron DeSantis has a lot of momentum, and Charlie Crist or Nikki Fried will face him. Whoever wins faces two issues. DeSantis is a rising star in the GOP, and Democrats have not won a Florida governor's contest in almost 30 years.
Well, we'll find out, of course, tonight, sometime after the polls close at 7 p.m., which of the Democratic candidates, either U.S. Congressperson and former Governor Charlie Crist or Agriculture Commissioner Nikki Fried, will be the Democratic nominee. Most of the polls, not all of them, but most of the polls suggest that Charlie Crist will be victorious tonight. And if that happens, we'll then have a 2.5-month general election campaign. As you say, it is a definite challenge. Governor DeSantis is an incumbent. He now has more than $130 million banked for the general election campaign. But polls do still show the general election in a relatively competitive position. So likely to be yet another competitive election here in the state of Florida, both today and over the next 2.5 months.
And turnout is going to be key there. And we'll see how Roe v. Wade, influences a lot of the turnout on the Democratic side as well. Come back to another big statewide race in a minute. But first, on the local ballot, we've got the sheriff's race. And you've got 5 candidates in the field there. But the polls indicate that T.K. Waters and Lakeisha Burton are the frontrunners. One would continue to run JSO as his predecessors. That would be Waters, while Burton may facilitate some change with community policing. Now, either way, Jacksonville will elect a black sheriff for only the second time in its history. And crime, the growing crime problem and murder rate is significant here, as is JSO morale.
Well, just to remind people about the mechanics of this particular election, it's a little bit different. This is a race we were expecting, but not until next March and May with the normal city elections. But former Sheriff Mike Williams left office early. These 5 candidates are running to fill the remaining 7 months of his previous term, and will have a chance to run again for a full 4-year term next spring. We have a unitary election. There are 5 candidates that will probably be whittled down to 2 for November. The leading contenders, many think, are T.K. Waters, the Republican candidate, and Lakeisha Burton, one of the Democratic candidates. But of course, we'll see again how that shakes out in the polls tonight. But this race likely also going to November, so voters can choose who the next Duval County sheriff will be then.
And somebody has to get 50% plus 1, otherwise there could be a runoff.
That's exactly right. If someone doesn't get an outright majority, the top 2 finishers then advance to the November election.
Okay, so let's go back to the statewide races. The other big marquee race pits Marco Rubio and Val Demings. Val Demings has been on a big-time media blitz. She has a substantial campaign war chest, and a recent UNF poll puts her well ahead of her 3 challengers. But again, the biggest issue is November, because control of the Senate is at hand, and Florida's front and center in both that Senate race and congressional races as well. And control is a big issue in the midterms.
Bruce, WJXT viewers are actually going to have a front row seat to 2 of the biggest U.S. Senate races in the country, which might decide control of that body. Both the race, as you say, between Val Demings and incumbent Senator Marco Rubio, which multiple polls have said is very close and likely to be tightly contested through November. But of course, also the Senate race in the state of Georgia, which is part of the WJXT viewing area, with incumbent Raphael Warnock and challenger Herschel Walker. So people in this area are going to see 2 of the most competitive Senate seats in the country over the next 2.5 months.
So let me get back to focusing on Ron DeSantis. He has been campaigning across the country, and everything he does, it seems to be playing to a political base. He was here in Jacksonville last weekend as part of his active effort to influence nonpartisan school board contests statewide, something we have not seen a governor do before. Does he really care about the governor's contest here, or is everything predicated on a White House run?
Well, I think he very much cares about the governor's contest, because if he isn't reelected governor, any future political plans are sort of moot at that point if he's not reelected governor. So I think he does care about that contest. But I think what you're seeing is sort of an aligning of efforts. He and his team obviously have sort of a theory of the case which suggests that they're going to run for governor in a way that might also boost future presidential prospects. Of course, we won't know whether those future presidential prospects are likely until after the November elections.
So what if he decides he does want to run and if Donald Trump is in the field as well?
Well, that's going to be a very interesting situation because, of course, as we know, one of the major factors behind Governor DeSantis being elected, at least winning the Republican nomination, then being elected governor, was President Trump's decision to support him over then Agriculture Commissioner Adam Putnam. So you'll have a case where a political mentee is challenging his political mentor. Could make for a very interesting Republican primary contest in 2024.
All right, but first we get past tonight's interesting primary contest. Lots to be said. And you'll be here for political analysis tonight.
I will. I sure will. Looking forward to it. And thank you for having me this morning.
Absolutely. And you'll be back with us tomorrow morning as well.
Looking forward to it. Thank you.
All right, so keep in mind the polls close here in Jacksonville at 7 o'clock tonight, but you also have the polls closing in the Panhandle at 8 o'clock our time, so the results won't start filtering in till then, and that's when our coverage begins here online and on news4jax.com. Again, Chris, thanks for being here.